Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Devin Rex Art here. Today I'm going to try a technique to make prints using masking tape. So I was watching a YouTuber named Yeats Makes, and especially two of his videos, Masking Tape Printmaking and Printmaking Hack. They were really good. I'll link them below. So he uses masking tape to make like a faux lino cut. He uses masking tape and on acetate card to make a print. So in his, I think the Printmaking Hack, he actually draws a face, his own face, he draws it, and then he uses that as the base. I'm gonna try to do my own hack where I use already, printed material. So I thought I would use this elephant picture. It's the same picture I used when I made my elephant mask for this piece here. So it's the same mask that I used for that. I do have a YouTube video on that if you want to watch it. I used my video making app called InShot to transform this into this. I can show you that. So this is the app I use. You open up your InShot. Let me just start over. So you go to photo, you pick your picture. I'm actually going to rotate it so you can see it better. So you go to effect, style. I went to style, but I went to print, this print one, and it transformed it into more of a like harsh black and white, which is what I want to use for my my base to make my own print. So I'm gonna click select, and then you export it. Photos, here it is in my photos, and then I go ahead and I went to my computer and I printed it. And I decided to print it in a size, not a full page like this one. I reduced it so that it would fit within this acetate card. So the other things you need for this project are a cutting mat and an X-Acto knife and masking tape. Printing it, he used special printmaking paint or ink, which I don't have. So I'm gonna see if it works with just regular acrylic. I'm gonna open up these things and we'll get started. So I've got my image. Here's my acetate film. I'm just gonna put that over top and tape it down. And the key is you want to create a raised surface, similar to stamp carving really, but this isn't thick enough, so he recommends using two layers of tape. And this is my own hack. He kind of did his a different way. I'm going to also use this wax paper. He cut, some he cut on the side, some he cut directly on the acetate. I'm a little afraid that I'm going to wreck it if I do that. So I'm going to use this wax paper, and I thought to make it easier for myself, I would just use a marker, like a Sharpie, and just kind of outline some of the obvious areas. Let's start with that. Okay, I'm going to start over. I just tried one and it was kind of weird. I had like a line going down the middle. So I've broken it up into chunks now. I think that'll look better. And then we'll add some fine lines to show where he ends and also some of the texture. So that's going to add a line there. Remember, the tusks are going to be white. So this time, take two is I'm going to make my double strips over here. And let's just go ahead and do a bunch of them. I trim off where it's single. Any leftover pieces that have single, I'm putting off my cutting mat because I want to make sure I don't use those. So those definitely have double. Let's start at the back and move our way forward. So I'm going to do his back leg first. I want to make sure I get all the way to the top. I want to do each section individually. Okay, so now I'm going to use this Sharpie to trace that section. And I'm going to just make myself a note to cut out a few notches for some light highlights. Do that. Take this off, and then we'll cut it out. The nice thing about this smaller cutting mat is I can rotate it. So right here, it's quite easy to rotate as I'm cutting. And I'm just going to go straight across there. So the first time I tried it, it was like a little bit too piecemeal, like there was straight lines. And I didn't think that was going to print very well. So that's why we're doing it this way in sections this time. Okay, so let's lift this out. And I'm going to keep this piece of leftover double because I know that's double and we're going to use it to make little lines later. And here I'm just going to notch out some highlights to indicate that the light hitting his leg there. Okay, there, I think I'm happy with that. So we're going to lift this up and put it down. Just going to check. It's pretty good. Now it's not going to be a perfect replica of this elephant because we're adding a hand manufacturing element to it, and that's the point, is we want it to look handmade. So I decided to redo how I broke up this section, so I'm just going to get a new piece of wax paper. And then what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing more like a V shape. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the eye separate. So here there's a little bit of leeway because the tape is flexible. So I just want to indicate the edge of the tusk there. Hopefully that's enough to do it. And then I'm going to do another little strip here to do the same. This one I'm just going to cut a piece freehand, nice thin strip, and then we'll add it to the edge. This is pretty finicky. And then I'm going to cut it here. I'll exaggerate that a little bit. And then I feel like I need just a hint of a line there to show that the tusk has a thickness to it. So I'm going to cut another little wee line. Like I leave a little edge just to show that one. Here's where it gets really fiddly, I think, depending on the level of detail you want to put in there. I'm going to do a strip here to show like that his other ear's there. I'm tempted just to do his ear and then cut out a bunch of spikes like that. This is going to be the hardest part. I thought instead of doing individual lines, what if I cut out shapes and then do similar cutouts to that? So we'll see how that looks. I'm going to add that one back, the one that fell off. Oh, maybe that one's too thick. Let's add a smaller one. So just added that back, and just as a reminder, this is this part here, because these are the wrinkles. So they're quite fine. I don't want to end in a big square. Okay, so that's better. And then I'm going to just kind of cut. It's going here. Oh, I put that too low. Let's move that. So as opposed to lino cutting, you know, you can move things around, add, delete. Whereas lino cutting, once you've cut off that piece, you're done. Like, that's done. I don't think I like this piece here. I'm just going to rip off that wrinkle. So, okay, so I'm going to take this piece back off, and then we'll cut in the wrinkles. Here, this one's very thin. We'll just add that to the top. It's pretty good. And instead of doing like individual grasses, I'm gonna do just do like a cartoony. So we'll do to make it really flat. Well, flat but even. Looks elephanty to me. So I've got some resume paper I'm going to use to take the print. I'm going to try it with Mars Black acrylic paint. I'm going to use the jelly plate to load up the brayer. And then he says the trick is to make sure your brayer has really thin layers. He was using printing ink though, which was quite thick consistency. So I'm hoping this will be similar. But he did seem to say the key is to load up your brayer with really thin layers before applying it. All right, so I'm just gonna load up my brayer. I'm gonna roll that off a bit. Okay, that seems pretty. I have a feeling it's not gonna stay wet enough. You did say that the first print is the hardest one, so maybe I'll just focus on getting the coverage. And you can see here how there's some excess. So I don't think that's going to print well yet. So I'm going to just consider this a coating. I'm going to just dab that off. I don't mind if there's a little bit of texture like around. Just take some of that off. So we'll call that coat 1. And I'm going to just add some more. I can see the problem areas, but let's, you know what? Let's just try to pull this print. I've got some pretty good paint coverage. And I'm going to just put it on top. Give it a good press down. He used a wooden spoon to really burnish it. Lid I use for jelly plating. Let's give that really good. Let's see. So that's not too bad. Looks like an elephant. I'm gonna just let that dry on there and then we'll try to print again. Take 2. Okay, this seems pretty dry, so we're gonna try it again. This time I'm just gonna do it on copy paper that doesn't have a texture on it. He said you can peek. Yeah, so that didn't really work as well. That didn't work. I think the paint didn't have enough paint on it. Okay, let's try adding the glazing medium. So I'm gonna add this retarder, and it's mix small quantities with acrylic paints to achieve slow drying, increase workability, reduce paint skimming. Do not add more than 15% retarder to paints. That seems to be covering better. Fingers crossed. Yeah, that's better. All right, so there's my elephant print. So it took a few days to experiment with the this printing technique, and here's a summary of what I did and some of my final thoughts. This next one is the acrylic paint, but with gray paint and the extender. It worked pretty well. Still getting a lot of impression from around the elephant. Here I tried a little less paint with purple, and not so good, so it's pretty finicky. Then I smushed it onto my jelly plate. You can see on the left side there, and it left an impression in the jelly plate. And I painted that in with some gray and some green and picked it up with the blue paint. So that's an interesting way you can use these faux lino cuts. I thought, well, I'll cut away the edge to see if that helps, and I'll use some pour paint. Pour paint takes longer to dry, so I thought it was worth a go. Didn't work that great, so I tried it with the extender, and it didn't work. It's kind of sticky feeling. So I decided, well, let's try some Sumi ink, which is really liquidy, and it doesn't make a great impression because it's too liquidy. And but the back side of that paper where I brayered it was kind of cool. So you can use different things, just experiment, see what works. Next, I thought, well, what if I use 4 layers of tape instead of just 2? Would that help me not have all those extra spaces being colored? So I put 3 layers of masking tape down. I took one layer against this pumpkin that I drew, and then I took that piece of tape back onto the 3 layers of tape and then cut it out, just because 4 layers of tape would be hard to see through. So here's extender with a craft paint, and it was kind of blotchy. Here I left it on too long and it ripped the paper. So that's that. Then I tried a mixture of the craft paint and the pouring paint. Again, it was pretty sticky and it stuck to the paper. I did the same thing where I pushed the pumpkin stamp, we'll call it, into the jelly plate and did a pickup print. Then I thought, well, if it works on jelly plate like a stamp, maybe I could just use regular stamp pads to pick up a print. And those worked, they're okay. This is a thicker paper, and yeah, it's okay. I mean, the pumpkin isn't very complicated. You could certainly carve a stamp with that. I thought, what if I used woodless colored crayons to do a rubbing of the faux lino plates, and that worked pretty well. And advantage, you could use different colors on it the way you want. So that's another way you can use this technique. Then I broke down, I went and I ordered some block printing ink, the water soluble kind. I didn't want to use the oil kind. And I tried to keep a thin layer. So instead of using the jelly plate, I just used a thin layer of plastic. And I rubbed it as well as I could. And, those turned out pretty well. I don't know if it was that much better than the acrylic ink with the extender. So it wasn't a super expensive tube that I bought, but I don't know if it's worth it. So I'd probably just stick with the acrylic ink with extender if didn't happen to have block printing ink on hand. It does look nice. I'm pretty happy. I wish I didn't have so much of the surround showing. Even with the pumpkin, eventually the surround kind of picked up a lot of the ink, but perhaps if I found a different technique to get a thinner coat of ink or paint, that would work better. On the top is the acrylic paint, on the left, on the top right, acrylic paint and extender, and then the bottom two are with the block printing ink. Let me know if you have any tips for me, any comments, any questions. I highly recommend checking out Yeats Makes, and he's got some cool stuff on there, some cool ideas. And yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate your time and your thoughts and your encouragement. Okay, bye now. Have a great day.